Hello everyone, do you have a picky eater? Are you struggling to get your dog to eat their kibble and their food? Have you tried giving them treats and toppers and filling their bowl with yummy stuff and they still turn up their nose? Well, this video is for you. Today we're going to be covering how to fix your picky eater. So some people think that buying different food, more food, yummier food, and lots of different kinds of food is the issue to fix their picky eater. This is not what we do. Of course, we want our dogs to be healthy and happy, to have all sorts of yummy food. And of course, I always recommend you feeding your dog what they like best and what makes them happy. But picky eating is not about giving your dogs better and better and better things. Picky eating is about finding out what's at the root of why they're not eating their food and addressing that, whether that is medical or whether that is behavioral. That's what we're gonna be addressing today. Let's talk about how to feed your dog and how to implement structure to help your dog stop being such a picky eater. So how you're gonna feed your dog if you have a picky eater is you're gonna have a designated time and a place for the dog to eat. For my clients who we want to nip this in the bud, I ask them to feed their dogs in the crate. We're going to feed them in the crate so the dogs can relax. Many dogs don't eat all of their food because they're anxious. So this is a great way to reduce the anxiety, is feed them in their crate where they have a safe spot where their mind can relax, where their food is theirs, and they can have their own property and they can relax that nobody else is gonna come close to their food, so their minds can be at ease. So we're gonna feed them in the crate. The second step is feed them at relatively the same time of day each day. And this is just so they can get in a routine and schedule. It is very comforting to dogs. They're very simple creatures. It's very comforting to be fed at the same time each day. So in their crate at relatively the same time each day, I would challenge you to start doing that this week. Don't just watch this video and say, oh, that was a nice video. Watch this video and I would challenge you to implement the tips that I am offering. The last part of this tip is they get a certain amount of time to eat and that is it. So you can set that time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It just depends on how fast of an eater your dog is. Kaylar here, who's the German Shepherd, she eats super fast. Con here is a slower eater. If they haven't eaten and they're disinterested in the food, there's food remaining, you're gonna take that food away and you're not gonna get any treats, any human food, anything else until next meal time. We do want our dogs to realize that food comes from you and there's a certain amount of time, and that's going to help build a healthy expectation, a healthy food drive, and a healthy respect for you as well. The first and main tip that I give people to help picky eaters is we want to reduce that anxiety. How we do this in a proactive and gentle fashion is we provide structure to our dogs. And all that this means is that our dogs know where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be, and how to do that. So a great tip to do this is place. Whether it's a dog bed, a cot, a mat, a blanket, I don't care what it is, anything with defined boundaries. During the day, instead of wandering around, we're going to put our dogs on place, and that's going to increase the structure around the house. Some easy ways to do this are, if you're working at the computer, put them on place. If you're eating dinner, put them on place. If you're cleaning the house, put them on place. Give them a chance to have a job. So anything with a defined boundary, you're going to tell them to go there and you're going to tell them to relax. This looks very benign, but essentially what dogs are doing is they are practicing feeling their anxiety and then calming themselves down. We can't talk them through anxiety. One of the main behavioral issues for being a picky eater is anxiety. They'll get distracted at the smallest little things. So we're going to practice during the day of them feeling their emotions and self-soothing. So a great way to get started today is the tips that I mentioned about how to feed your dogs. And then this tip right here, which is during normal scheduled human activities, put your dog on place and have them practice being calm. This is one of the main ways we get dogs to stop being picky eaters if it is related to anxiety. Did you know that feeding your dog tons of human food is one of the main reasons why dogs are picky eaters? This is a struggle for so many dog owners because they love their dogs and you want to feed them good food. So let me show you the pros and the cons of feeding them human food and how to give your dog good things without ruining their appetite. Alrighty, so let's talk about how feeding table scraps to your dog can create a picky eater. So obviously, if your dogs are not hungry, they're not going to eat their food. And beyond that, they're going to start getting really picky. If they're getting really nummy grilled chicken here, they're going to be less likely to eat their normal food because number one, they're not going to be hungry. And number two, they're going to realize that if they're fed yummy human food, they're going to hold out for this type of food. So the yummier food you feed them, the less likely they are to eat their normal dry kibble. Now, you may have a dog that you can feed them all the human food in the world and they still eat their kibble, then you are lucky, right? You're blessed, fantastic. But if you do have a dog that's a picky eater, you want to be careful about feeding them table scraps because by feeding them table scraps, what I'm essentially letting them know that, hey, there is yummier food than your kibble out there, and if you wait and hold out, I'm going to provide you with that yummy food. So how do we get our dogs to eat their kibble and have yummy human food? Because I want my dogs to have yummy human food and eat their kibble. I want my dogs to have a good life. So it all depends on what kind of dog you have, and you can experiment with this. You can experiment with the amount of human food you give them. You can reduce that to make sure that they're hungry. They'll eat their kibble. But here's a good rule of thumb. My dogs don't get any human food if they're not eating their kibble. We're gonna stop all human food and human snacking. Now, if you live in a household with kids and they're dropping things to the dog, that's always a concern. If they don't eat their food, you're gonna pick it up and they're not gonna get any more food until the next mealtime. Another talking point is, how can I feed my dogs human food in a structured way so it doesn't undermine their kibble? Here's how I do it in my home. We eat our dinner. My dogs are on place. They go to their dog beds. They lay down. They are on place while we eat dinner. And then once we're done eating dinner, I have 4 dogs. I will portion out 4 different sizes for each dog. And then I give a break word, which I generally will say break or okay. And my dogs can come over and then they all sit and then I feed them the human food. So it's very structured. When you do feed them human food, they are away, they're laying down, they're not involved while you're eating, and then you have a specific time once you're all done, once you have the food all ready for them, you call them over and you can give them the food. Okay guys, just a quick interruption. Time for one Q&A question. Robert Bell from Utah says, my dog has ADHD. She can eat her food, but if she hears anything, she gets distracted and can't finish her food. Alrighty, Robert, so here's your answer. This is so common. This is a dog who has such high anxiety, high drive, highly stimulated that her body is always in fight or flight. Go, 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 go. Her body cannot settle enough to number 1, concentrate, and to number 2, get out of fight or flight mode so her metabolism can slow down, her digestion can slow down, and she can concentrate on what she's doing, and so she can actually feel hungry. So here's what I'm going to suggest doing with her. Go ahead and crate her 2 hours in, 1 hour out. The crating, it's not about the crate. I don't care about the crate. It's about giving her some downtime so she can practice relaxing. If you say, no, Bethany, I don't want to do the crate, then suggestion number 2, which is the place command. Put her on her dog bed, tie her down so she can't step off, and have her relax as she watches the world go by. A good way to reevaluate her nervous system is to give her time to experience relaxation so it becomes a habit over time. That's going to slow her brain down, it's going to slow her nervous system down, it's going to increase the appetite, and she should be able to start eating much better. So hopefully that advice helped. That was a great Q&A question. Let's get back to the video. Okay guys, we want to make sure there are no medical conditions. So please get your dog checked out if your dog is not eating. If they're lethargic, if you notice behaviors that you haven't seen before. Even the best training cannot help with medical issues. Here are some signs that not eating may be a medical issue versus a behavioral one. A very common cause is food intolerances. So food intolerances are not allergies. Food intolerances are usually just related to the gastrointestinal system. You're going to see constipation or diarrhea. You're going to see throwing up. You're going to see nausea. You're going to see disruptions in the gastrointestinal tract. Their poop is not normal. That is a food intolerance. That is one of the main causes why dogs won't eat their food. Along the heels of that is food allergies. Now, food allergies are different than intolerances. Food allergies are system-wide. This means that whatever food your dog is eating, their body thinks that it is a foreign object that needs to be fought. So food allergies look like licking themselves a lot. It looks like yeast infections. It looks like losing their fur and hot spots. And it is a system-wide inflammatory response. And one of the last ones is poisoning with your dog. This means eating stuff that is inedible or eating stuff that is toxic to them, sometimes both. So this looks like weeds around your yard that they may have got into that are toxic to them. This looks like eating toys, eating inedible objects like blankets, and maybe getting into the trash or on the counter and eating food that is poisonous to them. So that is another medical condition that is not behavior related. Here are some tips to avoid this. One is get your dog trained. This just means that when you speak, they listen. Dogs are going to be dogs. So if they're eating something they shouldn't, if they're getting into something they shouldn't, you can say no, you can say ouch, you can say stop, and you can catch it early and have the dog spit it out. That is the number one best way to stop poisonings. The second one, if your dog is not trained, is to limit their freedom. This just means keep them on a leash, put them on their dog bed, keep them crated, limit their freedom until you can get them trained to a trustworthy level. So hopefully this brief information is helpful about when it is medical and when it is behavioral related. Okay guys, that's it. Those are all the answers for today. I challenge you to implement the advice that I've given today. Hopefully it has been helpful, and we will see you in our next video.